This is the Rat King Scurrius, a mid-level boss meant for players with a combat level of 60 to 90. This is Certified Toe Looker Chad, a combat level 86 untradable locked Iron Man with a need for an upgrade. So why would we want to kill Scurrius exactly? Well, I'm glad you asked. Scurrius, released January 2024, 2 years after Chad's break. With a combat level of 200 and 500 HP, he has a 1 in 33 chance of dropping Scurrius' spine, an item that can make 3 untradable items. These items being the bone staff, the bone short bow, and the bone mace, which is a weapon specifically for each attack style. An upgrade for all the styles, however, this upgrade only being useful for rats specifically, as these weapons are rat locked. All would be great for the account, however, the short bow specifically will increase XP dramatically. Why the short bow? Well, being untradable locked, we have a bow and arrow issue, as 90% of our bolts, arrows, and otherwise throwables are tradables. That means we must source specific untradable ammo. Currently, for leveling up, we have been sourcing blue-right bolts, which is abysmal, as we have to travel from here to here and then click this orb 28 times before repeating over and over again until we have enough bolts to level. And yes, for all you keyboard warriors, there is a fairy ring at Mudskipper's Point you can use that also would work to speed it up a little bit, but still, the point is this is inefficient. And Chad dislikes inefficiency, so instead of having to repeat this process over and over again, with the bone short bow, we can utilize broad arrows to level up. Broad arrows being an item hated on mains as it's untradable and the only use for it is to die in the wilderness to get your GP back, is actually insanely good for our account, as it's one of the few highly accessible sources of ammunition, as we can directly buy these from a Slayer Master. Taking a break from Theoryscape, Chad needed some food, so he fished until he got 300 lobsters.
Full graceful suit, looking slick like a whisper. Fishing on the sand, call me the lobster lifter. Inventory filling faster than my rock delivers. Hooking in claws, oceans got no shivers. A tradable flex, yeah, I'm the big deal. XP gain, steady spinning that reel. Chad on the shore, no need to conceal. Still sharper than the greenest steel eel. I'm the lobster lord, rocking full speed. Graceful strides, yeah, that's my creed. From Catherby Sands to seas that bleed. Fish is my game.
And welcome back. Now previously I talked about fairy rings and how they would have helped on the blue-right bolt ring. Well, we actually never completed that, and I realized that after the fact. So we're rolling things back a bit and we're actually going to be completing these quests. Lost City is the first one, and overall it went pretty smooth. No details. However, there is one item that you unlock in the Lost City that I must talk about. The Dreamin' Staff is an untradable staff which allows players to enter Xanaris from the shed in the Lumbridge Swamp after the completion of the Lost City quest. This staff doesn't necessarily have a ton of bonuses, but it is good enough to use in some scenarios. The attack bonuses are -1 in attack, -1 in slash, +10 in crush, and +10 in mage. Defense, +2 in stab, +3 in slash, +1 in crush, and +10 in mage. Now, the primary use is to enter Xanaris, however, if you're in a pinch, you could potentially use this to bash something, or to use some spells if there is no other untradable item present. For our account, primarily just to open the shed.
You them kids that have been whacking off in my tool shed?
The main use for these scepters are whilst equipped or in the inventory, they increase the base chance of additional crop yield beyond the minimum number by 10% for herb batches, allotments, herbs, trees, vines, bushes, plants, patches, and herbivores. But they don't increase the yield for seaweed, crystal trees, cacti, or any crops with a set yield like mushrooms, flowers, tree roots, and other trees like calquats. This weapon is also the only weapon in the game that has the ability to damage Tanglefoot. And with that, Fairy Tale Part 1 completed, and I'm going to do Fairy Tale Part 2, at least the part needed in order to unlock fairy rings off camera, as I'm not going to be finishing the quest, but just know that I'll have access in today's video. We then went and traveled to the money pyramid, making a total of 150,000 GP just so that we could have some in the bank. We are now going to talk about some of these things called powered staffs. What is a powered staff? Well, a powered staff is a staff that has a spell tied to the staff, meaning it is charged. When it's charged, you can then utilize these as they are untradables. Now, there are quite a few that have been added to the game since we took our break, some of them being the Bone Staff, the Warp Scepter, and I believe Thermaron Scepter, and the other staff. However, those are tied to raids, which are very unlikely that we're going to obtain anytime soon. The Trident and the Swamp ANCs were released prior to that, and I believe the Curse Scepter was also added recently, if I'm not mistaken, because that doesn't ring a bell. But either way, all of these staffs are untradable and can very well be used on the account for anyone that was wondering on some upgrades we could potentially get in the future. We just need to charge them before they use, as once they're charged, they will then be untradable. And finally, after obtaining 150k, we decided to set out on the journey to kill Scurrius. Alright, we're about ready to head inside. Are we sure we want to climb into a private instance? Oh, actually first we gotta pot up first because I completely forgot. So we hit up all our pots, go through a private instance, as this is the one with 500 health. If we did a public, it'd have 1500 health. We definitely don't want to do that. First off, we go up with our protection from melee and we attack Scurrius. Now we gotta be really wary of like the falling debris, as that's the highest hitting attack that you can do. So far we aren't hitting good or high at all, and that's what I'm kind of scared of. Since we're running a rapier that's like a, I think, rune scimitar level, so we're about free to play level currently trying to slay Scurrius. Not good, but decent. As long as we can maintain our prayer, though, I believe we can probably squeeze out a kill. Praise should be pretty worrisome if the fight rolls out too much, but that's why we brought out food, so that we can hopefully survive the onslaught. So during the first stage is he does run through and heal, and we need to out DPS his heals. And again, I'm entirely skeptical of being able to do that, as rapier isn't necessarily the strongest, but I think we might be able to just barely squeeze it out. There is no way that we'd be able to defeat a public instance 1, not without other people, not with our current setup at least. So we're just going on grinding this. So far it's going pretty smoothly. We've only eaten 1 lobster, but we are half prey currently. Going on to he's going to the next cheese pile, and we just completely missed that prey flick. We're pretty bad right now. We're rusty as we haven't played for a bit. We're switching over to the magic hit. Oh, perfect. And then we're going to switch back over. Nope, we're going to keep it in magic, and we're just going to sit on that for a bit, as that's what he's been hitting. Now we just need to make sure to be wary of the falling debris and go ahead and keep going. This is pretty good so far. No issues. Keep an eye on our stat bonuses. They are staying high, so with all of them on max, they're at like 80 attack strength and then like 75 defense, so I'm not mistaken. So hopefully that should be high enough. If not, I did think of something that we could have brought for this fight that we missed, and that was the barrel chest anchor. That's a special attack that we could have potentially used, but instead we actually forgot about it. Instead we're just going to continue on the fight. We're at 9 prayer points right now, which is really low, but maybe with the dream we can do it. 269, 7 prayer points. We are doing some flicking action, if you can call it that. We probably are saving 1 prayer point max with this setup. It's called the turn off for a split second, turn it back on. This isn't flicking in the slightest. It's been way too long for me to be able to do that without any issues. So we're rocking on right now, overall practicing, and we're hoping for this kill. 228, and we're still at 2 prayer. We end up turning it off for right now, just to hope. We're going to turn it on, hopefully to maintain more damage, and we are finally out of prayer points, and he's moving on to some more healing. So we're just going to stay on him and hope we don't eat, so that hope we don't have to eat too much, so that we can just stay on him and deal as much DPS before he goes back off. Luckily, during this fight so far, he hasn't spawned his rat creatures, which means that we can stay on him and deal the most DPS in one time period, and he just spawned them. Catch that luck. Well, he's luckily at towards the end of the phase where he won't heal anymore, so we should be able to just continue staying on him and hopefully out DPS him before our whole food supply runs out. So we're just going to continue to eat our lobsters right here, hopefully maintaining everything. This is pretty difficult, maintaining all of it. We're not going to kill these rats because I think we can tank them with the amount of food we have currently in our inventory, since we maintain most of the DPS by praying. So we're just going to maintain it with food and just try to out eat all this DPS that he's doing to us. I'm not sure. We are getting on pretty close. He's at 67 though, and we have like 12 lobsters, so I don't think we're going to have any issues killing him this time, but we should be pretty good. 37. Rocking about two rows foods. Lobsters. These rats aren't hitting high. He's not hitting high. Overall, I think this kill is going pretty smooth. I don't think we're going to have any issues now killing him. Running out with 7 food. He's slaying Scurrius. And 7 HP. We're about ready to finish him up. And he's dead. And what do we end up finding on his first loot? We got coins. But we ended up Scurrius for the novice combat task. And that is our first kill complete. Now let's go see some of the other kills they ended up doing. And I'm gonna tell you, they're not as nice. Looking at this kill that we ended up doing, Scurrius spawned rats like 3 times in a row, actually probably 4 or 5, and we just couldn't out DPS the amount of damage they were doing with prey flicking with our prayer running out, since we only had 50 prayer. So we just ended up running out of food towards the very end when he was about 50 HP, which kind of sucked since we were so close, but we do know that we can kill him if we keep trying, so we just keep attempting over and over again, hoping that we can do it. Alright, this is attempt number 3, and we ended up bailing again. We had him 67 HP, but we just ran out of food right at the end again. We're gonna attempt again. Hopefully we'll be able to do this once again. Did realize I have stab instead of lunge. I don't think that's gonna matter because since they're the same style, but it's just something we noticed and we changed just to find out. Attempt number 4, we actually had to bail out super early as we just ran out of prey way too soon, and we were at like 9 lobsters, and it was just better off conserving food instead of just risking dying and having to run back. So we bailed super early on to conserve. It's not super great, but it ended up, I guess, working. So far we're 1-4 after failing 3 times in a row, and knowing we get so close every time, but we just fail because of just our prayer points. They just run out slightly too soon. I decided to finally just use up one of our prayer potions. We don't have a lot of these, as we don't have the herbivore level to make them, but we do have a few. So we ended up bringing a 2-dose one just to prove that we can do this again, so we can have our confidence built up. We brought the barrel chest anchor, prayer potion, and an attack potion. We don't have strength or defense right now, and that might probably help during that first kill, I'm not gonna lie, but we don't have them right now, so we're just gonna get it up and we're gonna continue this fight. No way. No way, boys. We just got the Scurrius spine on the second kill count. That's insane. My luck is typically terrible, and I would have went like 50 dry knowing my luck. But on the second's insane for the account, as that just makes this where we can kill him so much quicker with one of these new weapons that we can create. Now, I thought long and hard on what item we should get, and I continuously ran around RuneScape and looking into everything that we could potentially use. And just out of curiosity, I finally thought, what is the easiest one to make? And upon like looking into this and thinking about it real hard, the easiest one was to make the bone mace. The reason being is a rune mace can be bought in the Champions Guild just slightly further away. Upon buying the rune mace, we bring it over to an anvil and we smith it. In order to make the bone short bow, we need a used short bow, which you can't buy unless you have Privendus. Therefore, we'd have to figure out a way to obtain it either from a medium clue scroll, get it from a drop, etc. And then the bone staff, although useful, isn't necessarily on our top priority of gear upgrades on the list. We will definitely get it in the future, but we would also need a battle staff, and that's further away. And our primarily combat staff right now, without having a ton of magic gear, is melee. That's our highest stats. So we're just gonna make this bone mace, and I'll get back to you all. I thought there was just something to it, talking about the bone mace in front of Scurrius, so let's go ahead and do it. So the bone mace is a weapon requiring level 50 attack to wield. It is made by combining a rune mace with Scurrius spine and an anvil. As a rat bone weapon, it is effective against all types of rats by adding 10 damage to the player's maximum hit. The downside to this mace is it cannot be used against other types of monsters. Doing so will yield the game message, you can only use this weapon against rats. Additionally, this weapon also has no attack cooldown when attacking the giant rats that Scurrius summons, meaning that you can kill them pretty quick. Comparing this to the most effective gear, according to the wiki for Scurrius, as this weapon is essentially only useful for Scurrius, for mid-level gear, the bone mace is the absolute best, and the best offhand is the dragon defender. So we have two of the best mid-level weapon choices, or gear options. And now DPS wise, looking at all the other weapons in the game, comparing their stats, according to the wiki, the bone mace is on par with the blade of Salador and the Ghazi rapier, outclassing the abyssal tentacle, but being outclassed by the soul reaper axe and scythe of Vertir. Whatever. The only things we are outclassed by in the defender slot is their Vernic, obviously, but that's going to be long term. So we have our third best high level weapon for this boss specifically. Now, if you made it this far into the video, please like, comment, subscribe. This helps the algorithm immensely and just helps us just do better and want to make more content. This will be the end of the video, unfortunately, so keep on chatting and goodbye.